Welcome to College MIS Matters, the podcast where we uncover the latest news, insights, and innovations shaping management information systems in further education colleges. Join us as we explore data-driven strategies, tackle key challenges, and share real-world stories to empower MIS professionals like you. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the College MIS Matters podcast. We've got a show packed with insights and updates you won't want to miss. First, we'll explore the closure of the ESFA and its move into the Department for Education, what it means and how it fits into decades of structural changes in education funding. Then we'll look at AI's growing role in government, from managing treasury emails to revolutionizing public services. And finally, we look at Keir Starmer's bold 50-point AI plan, what it promises for the UK as an AI superpower, and the questions it raises. Then we'll wrap up with a real look into the 23-24 Provisional QAR, answering key questions and helping colleges stay on top of their data. So, settle in, because today's conversation will inform and inspire. So, I'll first need to invite colonel guest Robin Wilson to introduce himself. He was here in our first maiden edition, but he's here again with us. So Robin, for the sake of those that haven't listened to the first edition, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Hello everybody, thank you. My name is Robin Wilson, and I've worked in the FE sector for 17 years in colleges. So I've experienced lots of changes, I suppose, over those years. And before that, when I first started out, I spent a couple of years in school and also a couple of years in university whilst I was a student, actually. So yeah, I have a long history in colleges though, over the years, and all the different challenges that change brings. So I'm currently a director of Further Education Partnership, which is a consultancy company offering FE consultancy supporting your MIS department.
Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you for coming again for this second episode. I explained more about myself in our first episode, so you can have a listen to the first episode of last week. So, our first news for today's episode: the Education and Skills Funding Agency, ESFA, is set to close in March 2025, with its functions moving into the Department for Education, DFE. This significant change aims to integrate financial management with school improvement efforts. So, to understand the historical context of funding agencies for further education and colleges in England before the creation of the Education and Skills Funding Agency in 2017, I think it's good to look into the evolution of these agencies and the government's motivations for reform. So here's a detailed narrative of all the changes of the agencies over the decades. So first, we had the funding agencies for further education, the one before ESFA, and the first we're going to look at is Further Education Funding Council for England, the FEFCE, the FEFC, which was between 1992 to 2001. The Further Education Funding Council was created following the Further and Higher Education Act of 1992. It was responsible for distributing funds to colleges, overseeing further education institutions, and ensuring accountability. This was a pivotal moment in FE history as colleges were removed from local authority control and given independent corporation status. This increased autonomy marked the beginning of colleges managing their own budgets while being funded directly by the FEFC. Then we had the Learning and Skills Council LSC between 2001 and 2010. The Learning and Skills Act 2000 replaced the FEFC with the Learning and Skills Council LSC. So the LSC oversaw funding and planning for post-16 education and training, including further education, apprenticeship, and workforce skills. The LSC had main office in Coventry. I actually remember always seeing the office then, as I have a close relative who lives in Coventry, so I always see the office every time I go to Coventry. So the LSC was a national body with 47 local offices to ensure regional focus. It had a much broader remit, aiming to address skills shortages and improve workforce training alongside traditional FE college oversight. But the LSC faced criticism for being overly bureaucratic and failing to efficiently allocate resources. This led to debates about its effectiveness, culminating its eventual replacement. So, then in 2010, the coalition government under David Cameron dissolved the LSC in 2010 as part of its public sector reform agenda. It was replaced by two agencies. Young People's Learning Agency, the YPLA, focused on funding education and training for 16 to 19-year-olds. Then the Skills Funding Agency, the ESFA, they were to manage adult education and skills funding for learners aged 19 and above. So the LSC was abolished, and then we had two agencies to replace the one LSC, the YPLA for 16 to 19 and the SFA for 19 plus, and this was in 2010. So the creation for the Education Funding Agency and Skills Funding Agency, SFA, in 2012. So then McGov, the then Secretary of State for Education, as part of a wider reform of education funding. So in April 2012, the Education Funding Agency, EFA, replaced the YPLA. Another change. So the EFA was to manage funding for schools, academies, free schools, and further education for 16 to 19-year-olds. It focused on streamlining funding allocations and simplifying oversight for this age group. So that was 2012. The EFA replacing the YPLA, but the SFA continued to oversee adult skills funding, managing apprenticeship frameworks and ensuring alignment with government's workforce development strategy. So the SFA remained as it was. It was just the YPLA that was replaced by EFA. So from EFA and SFA, then we had ESFA. So the ESFA, the Education and Skills Funding Agency, was announced in 2016 by the Department for Education, DFE, so to merge the functions of the EFA and SFA. So back from LSC to YPLA and SFA, then to EFA and SFA, and then we're back to merging into one again. So the whole idea of merging EFA and SFA as one into ESFA was to simplify funding administration by creating a single agency responsible for all education and skills funding. Was also to align funding and regulatory functions more closely under the Department for Education, improving accountability and reducing duplication. It was also to enhance the government's focus on apprenticeship, technical education, and post-16 learning as part of its skills agenda. So the ESFA began operating in April 2017 as a central agency overseeing funding for schools, colleges, and training providers for all learners aged 16 and above. It also managed the apprenticeship levy introduced in 2017. So when the EFA and SFA were introduced, and later when they were merged to form the ESFA, the government consistently framed these changes as efforts to simplify education funding systems. Simplify. We hear that so many times. The other objective was to reduce bureaucracy and create efficiency. I'm not sure how far I've gone with that. And also to enhance accountability in how public funds were allocated and used, and then also to respond to workforce needs, particularly in skills training and apprenticeships, aligning education policy with economic goals. For instance, the announcement of the ESFA it highlighted the importance of supporting the government's ambitions for a skills-based economy and ensuring that colleges and training providers could better serve students and employers. So with all these changes, it's quite interesting. What is the take away from this? It's this rich history of change in education funding agencies reflects the constant balancing act between centralization, efficiency, and responsiveness to educational needs. From the independence of FE colleges in 1992 to the creation of the ESFA in 2017. Every reform has been driven by the desire to align education funding with national priorities. And in the upcoming integration of the ESFA into the DFE is the latest chapter in this ongoing evolution. Encouragingly, this history demonstrates how successive governments have sought to refine and adapt the education funding system to meet the demands of learners, employers, and the society as a whole. The key question moving forward is whether these reforms will strike the right balance between efficiency and flexibility for colleges and other providers. And that's the thing. I'm not sure, Robin, I'm not sure if there's been so much it's been that effective with all of these changes in the past few years, from one to two agencies to one, away from DFE to involved directly under DFE. Robbie, what do you think about this? And you've been there for a long time, those days of LSC as well. So what was your remembrance of these changes in the past decades or so?
Well, I think each attempt to simplify it, hasn't helped simplify it, I would say.
I know.
And I mean, they're bringing more and more rules and more sort of types of training and funding streams. And obviously, there's also devolution has come about where the funding's split out into local authorities having to manage it, which adds complexity. Where one college could be working with the whatever they call themselves, the government, and then there was the central government, which is obviously at the moment the ESFA, changing to the DFE. But then they're also possibly working with one or more local governments with their own funding agendas, which are different. And you've got things like traineeships, trailblazers, English and maths conditions of funding. It's hardly getting simplified. There's more. I think that there's more pitfalls probably than there ever were probably, and it's obviously a constant task to ensure that by the MIS departments to ensure that everything is kind of compliant with the rules, and if you're audited, obviously you're meeting requirements in all these areas. But I mean, rather than changing their name all the time and using all these different acronyms, but I mean they could obviously amend the roles, but they're kind of going round in circles. So thinking, well, one big thing works better. Oh no, different split up things work better. Then they go, no, actually, I think one big thing works better, because I think really they share a lot of the same functionality. I mean, what they need is one role, one department with two offices. That might be what they need. Something with balance between the two. So I think there's, I mean, obviously this latest change. I think as well, you've got to keep up to date with obviously all the changes and what implications this has on the MIS departments and the wider college as a whole, to sort of keep up to date with what's the impact of this change on the colleges on a day-to-day basis, and what changes will they have to make in future to ensure that anything that's sort of that's lagged will be correct when it comes round. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges, but I don't think the simplification is working. So I have to see what this latest change brings to the sector. Hopefully, it'll be positive, but it might be a lot more long PDFs by the gov.uk website to have to read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just yes, we hope. Yeah, it just there's really it kind of constant balancing act, trying to centralize, decentralize, trying to look at efficiency, simplification, and responsiveness to the educational needs as well. From the independence of FE colleges in 1992 to the creation of the ESFA in 2017, and every reform has been driven by the desire to align education funding with national priorities, which is influenced by politics, the politics of the day. And then, yeah, like I said, the upcoming integration of the ESFA into DFE is, the latest chapter of the ongoing evolution, and we shall see what impact that has with new acronyms, new things to learn again, or if it's just different name, but everything stays as they are.
It can't be efficient to keep changing the name, I think, because obviously changing the name all the time, there's lots of work in rebranding, having to tell everyone what it is.
Exactly.
And it's a good job for the person that puts the signs up above the company offices, because they're every few years they're going to have to take the sign down, make a new one, and put the new sign up.
Exactly. That is very true. So, our second news. In the public sector, AI is being utilized to manage communications more effectively. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, for example, is employing AI to handle Treasury emails. This AI tool helps categorize and prioritize emails, identifying high priority messages and matching standard responses to routine queries, thereby supposedly saving several hours of manual work daily. Despite this advancement, human oversight remains crucial to prevent errors. Notably, the Treasury has started to use OpenAI software to help officials respond to emails, according to the Times, which was reported on Sunday, the 12th of January. Robbie, would you use AI to help you to categorize your email and prioritize your email and automatically reply to some emails. Actually, I do remember doing a play with Zapier last year. Zapier is one of those automation system where it can automatically reply to certain emails, so you can, but it is quite scary to have to do things like that, and you are very careful for potential errors of emails going to the wrong thing and wrong response. So what do you think about that idea of using AI to help prioritize and categorize emails, which can help in a way, I guess, save time to manually decide which email to reply to what? Yes. Robert, what do you think?
Yeah, I think again, like we spoke about in the previous podcast, if you use AI tools for the right things, they can be really helpful. But if you use them for possibly the wrong things, then there's risks attached. And I mean, what you want is to improve the level of service or the response. So I suppose if it was something like, I mean, if I was say in some of the roles I've done, like you're getting hundreds of emails a day. A lot of those are, are sort of not ones that require an immediate response, but then mixed in with those might be one that does require an immediate response. And so if you have a tool that can categorize emails and ensure that the important ones get dealt with first, and they can kind of find with times when everyone can do meetings without someone having to sort of manually spend time on the kind of admin tasks where I think AI can really excel at. Then I think that's a really useful use of the tool, where it can actually, categorize the emails and they can be handled by the most appropriate people who can still maybe have that last point before it gets sent. I think automatically sending a reply, it could be dangerous. I mean, like some of the examples in the last podcast where the AI is telling people to do things which if it was an employee of Google or Microsoft or the government, they wouldn't be telling somebody to do those kind of things. Like, what do I do if I can't pay my tax bill? They might say, "Oh well, just rob a bank," because that would, logically speaking, it would give you lots of money. You could pay your bill, but they would obviously never recommend that. If an employee of the council, they would never say that to you. I doubt it anyway. And so, but I think as well, if people are looking at using AI tools to replace the staff and actually kind of respond to people. I mean, when a customer contacts the tax people, they want an answer, and if the AI is used more like a barrier, where they kind of a bit like the phone systems where you have lots of menu options to get through, and it's only the very persistent people that will sit through all of those things to actually can finally get to speak to a person. If it makes it even more difficult to speak to a person, then that's not a kind of going to be, it's not going to benefit the customer. It might save the save the government money, but you really want to be improving your service whilst also being more efficient. And I think it's getting the balance right.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I think with is it Autoflow? There's this part of the Microsoft with Teams and SharePoint where you can categorize emails and automatically reply to certain emails. I cannot remember the name now, top of my head.
Oh.
Anyway, our last news for today is we're going to look into Keir Starmer's ambitious 50-point plan for artificial intelligence (AI), announced recently as part of his government's broader strategy to position the UK as a global AI superpower. With bold proposals and some controversy, this topic will spark thought-provoking discussions. So, some of the highlights of this 50-point AI plan, as I was going through them, training and recruitment of AI experts. So, the training and recruitment of AI experts. So, the plans to train the next generation of AI specialists at UK universities, and changes to immigration rules to attract thousands of AI experts to Britain from abroad, and then collaboration between the government and private sector to recruit and fund AI talent. Then there's the legislative and regulatory changes. which is about the revision of data mining rules to make the UK more competitive on the global stage. Then the establishment of a national data library of public sector data to train AI models with safeguards like anonymization in place. Then there's section AI in public services. Keir Starmer emphasized the transformative potential of AI in reducing NHS appointment backlogs, streamlining social services, and speeding up administrative processes. Initiatives to cut costs, improve productivity, and enhance service delivery across government departments. The building AI infrastructure. AI declared as critical national infrastructure. So it's going to be tagged as a critical national infrastructure, focusing on building massive data centers. And there will be investment commitments of 14 billion pounds, 14 billion pounds, expected to create over 13,000 jobs. That's 13,000 jobs, with projects like a 12 billion, that's 12 billion pounds data center in Wales by Vantage Data Centers, and then a sovereign data center in Essex by 2026. Then, under environmental and energy considerations, there'll be a formation of an AI Energy Council to address the significant energy and water demands of the AI industry, and also balancing AI's energy needs with the UK's net zero goals. So this has brought a lot of public and expert reactions. So the supporters' perspective is that advocates praise the plan for its forward-thinking approach, aiming to revolutionize industries and create economic growth. The 14 billion pounds in investment signals strong global interest in the UK's AI sector. Also, the critics concerned, there are questions about environmental impact, especially energy-intensive data centers clashing with the net zero ambitions. There's privacy fears over how public sector data will be used in AI training, even with anonymization. There's worries about the impact on jobs, whether automation will lead to job losses or simply redefine roles. There's concerns about funding cuts to previous AI initiatives, like the cancellation of the exascale supercomputer at the University of Edinburgh. And so general skepticism, many feel the plan is overly ambitious, with some critics dubbing it a PR stunt rather than a realistic roadmap. There are comments from the public which reflects mixed reactions, with some questioning whether this focus on AI addresses real societal problems. So there's these key discussions to think about. Will the UK truly, these questions, will the UK truly become an AI superpower under this plan, or is it chasing unrealistic goals? How can the government balance AI's economic benefits with its environmental and ethical challenges? Are current privacy safeguards sufficient for the proposed national data library? Is the AI strategy inclusive enough to prevent further disparities between rich and poor nations in technology adoption? How will this plan impact colleges and education providers as they work to train the next generation of AI professionals? So thank you. So Robbie, what are your views with or what's in this Keir Starmer's 50 plans?
I think it's positive. Obviously, it's good that we are looking at it because, I mean, I think like computers, AI is coming whether you like it or not. So the kind of the government and the country needs to be on board with it and at least sort of trying out how it can help things and using it, in different ways where it can help. And I think there's some of the issues to do like with the power that's needed to power AI. I mean,
Hmm.
the technology is moving along, and I think like the new sort of Snapdragon processors, they use a much less power than the sort of x86, x64 processors. So you're getting much more
Mm.
power in much more processing power with much less electrical
Mm.
power. So the price per watt, I suppose you could call it, is reducing, meaning that
Of
it's
course,
going
man.
to get cheaper. So, and I think as well, like battery
Mm.
technology in cars, the more we sort of focus on this and develop it further, the more we develop more
Mm-hmm.
efficient data models and more efficient processors that power these data models. So I think we kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to be on board, and we it's good that Downing Street has it as so sort of central to their policy. I think that they are looking at using it
Mm.
where they can, and I think it's like anything because it's a bit of an unknown. It's evolving as time goes on. So this
Yes.
plan may evolve and change, but I think it's good that we're forward thinking, and we may, if it is, really good, and it hires, it sort of draws in the experts from maybe across the world. If
Mm-hmm.
we are, leading in this, then I mean that's really good, and hopefully, yes, it redefines roles so people are not working on the kind of admin tasks that AI is so good at, but they're instead working on the more the research side and the developing the AI so that we can achieve a lot more. And I think it's great. It's a great tool to use in the tool belt again, like I said, sort of to help
Mm.
achieve objectives and goals and move the UK forward.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So Keir Starmer's 50-point AI plan offers, a vision of an AI-driven future. But like you mentioned as well, it obviously raises some critical questions about feasibility, the ethics, and priorities. Because seeing a lot of comments from people online. So as we look at these proposals, the challenges lies in kind of like striking a balance between harnessing AI's potential and also addressing its inherent risk. Like I said, we mentioned that we discussed a little bit about this in our last week edition. So this plan, it has the power to shape the UK's economy and society, and positive and also negatively, for decades to come. So it is, we will see how things pan out in the next few weeks and few months and a few years. It's really evolving so quickly. So yes, now we're going to look at the QAR, the Provisional Qualification Achievement Rates and QAR for 23-24 based on R14 was released on the View Your Education Data website, and the government says the data query window closes on 31st of January 2025. So on the View Your Education Data, you find a QAR dashboard that uses your ILR data from 23-24 R14 return to show your rates. A QAR data download to show your learner level information is also available. So the government says on reviewing this provisional data, you have until 5 p.m. on Friday the 31st of January 2025 to inform ESFA of any concerns about how they have implemented their published methodology. The ESFA also say that you cannot request fixes or adjustment to your 23-24 ILR data. So this provisional QAR has raised several important questions among college staff and MIS teams. Um, with the data now available for review, today's discussion will focus on the implications, challenges, and actionable steps for colleges. So, some of the key talking points, we're going to look at about three key talking points. The first one is consistency between college system and QAR data. So staff are questioning whether the data reflected in the provisional QAR aligns with internal systems such as ProAchieve, Strata by Orbital, and similar software. These systems are often used to track key performance metrics like achievement rate for ENT and apprenticeship, and then other critical measurements, performance measurements. Discrepancies between these systems and the ESFA published data are common, and we're going to look at some of them. So why such differences arise, including variations in data processing and methodology, steps to identify and resolve discrepancies between the final QAR is published. So I'm going to hand over to Robin to give us some tips and information about this first point on consistency between college system and the QAR data. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. In colleges, I've been working at a few colleges, and they're all. The first thing you do when the QAR dashboard is released by the government is you look at your internal data to see if it matches what they're saying, because the dashboard they're publishing at the moment is the provisional dashboard based on your R14 data from 23-24 and your R04 data from 24-25, which is to close off the outstanding achievements, which well, ideally you would do in the final R14, but because of the apprenticeships having the EPA period, often you might not get those if they achieve at the very end of the year. So that's why it takes into account the R04. It's all in the qualification achievement rate business rules on the government website. So people would compare what's on there with what's in their internal systems, which it might be possibly a slightly different file if they've been importing files since then. Although actually it shouldn't be, because the R04 is finished now. So it should be as at that point, really. But it depends on parties on how these tools work, and if they create a snapshot that takes into account just the R14 and the next year's R04, or if it either just takes the R14 because that's the hybrid end year, or if it carries on and takes into account R05s as well. So the tool needs to work, and the Strata and ProAchieve both work seemingly in slightly different ways. Because you've got the exclusion. It basically surrounds the exclusions in the QAR, which is where certain records don't count, which is because they are, maybe it's like a non-timely withdrawals and things, the transfers, and that kind of thing, breaks in learning. But if you go into ProAchieve on the ENT side, the exclusions are shown in the column. There's a column that says there's QAR exclusions, and there's a number in there. But if you look on the apprenticeship side, it's 0 all the way down for the standard summaries. And in order to get that to generate, it seems you have to generate a special QAR summary in ProAchieve. But then Advanced don't publish the files till much later, so the only QAR summary you can generate is a 22-23 one, not a 23-24 one, making it quite difficult to compare like with like. Looking at Strata and comparing that to ProAchieve, that does include that does take out the exclusions. And looking at what impact the exclusions have, generally speaking, if you're taking ProAchieve, which doesn't do any exclusions, the government dashboard is showing a higher achievement rate, which I think in one college is as much as 10% difference compared to the internal pro achieve data, which was not taking the QAR exclusions into account. So because all those records are the kind of ones where there's a transfer or withdrawal, so they tend to be negative. So obviously the QAR dashboard that the government's producing, that is the most accurate, up to date picture, taking those exclusions into account and excluding them, whereas the apprenticeship summary in ProAchieve is including them, which is sorry, this is very sure I get the right way around. So yeah, the QAR dashboard is excluding them. ProAchieve is including them because they aren't excluded, meaning that you end up with a lower percentage. So in a way, it's a good thing, because it's not good because you want it to be accurate, but it's a positive in that you internally are reporting something lower, and then actually, surprise, it's higher at the. But then if you're being if you're being audited, or someone's looking at your data, or even Ofsted potentially, and they're going, well, why have you got this percentage in your SAR? But then on the government website, it's different to that, and then you've got to explain, well, that the tool we use is doing it this way. So you really want your tool to be matching. You don't want any surprises, good or bad, really.
No,
you want it to be the same. So Strata does seem to be taking exclusions into account. So it's it's tending to either match or be much closer. So those two tools are the main tools used by colleges. I mean, other tools may be available, but the main ones I'm familiar with are those two I've mentioned.
So if I just confirm, so at the moment, the ProAchieve achievement rate is very likely to be lower than the government QAR, because of the exclusion that is taken into account on the government QAR. But the ProAchieve at the moment, you cannot get that exclusion at the moment, as of today, as of this week, beginning Monday, the 20th of January 2025. So your ProAchieve rate will be showing lower than the government one. Is that
that's
correct?
Right. Actually, as well, you can. I should have mentioned this before, but if you go to the website where the government dashboard is, you can also download a spreadsheet of the data that sits behind it, and that actually has the exclusions in it. So if you include the exclusions in your data, then you get a percentage of achievement that is that more or less replicates what ProAchieve says. And I was able to do that and get it sort of to the point. So it was something point something, and I got the same percentage with the point after the decimal. When I switched it, just to prove that was the reason for, because I was asked to look into it for by colleges, and it would be interesting to see if everyone else is seeing the same thing. But certainly at three colleges so far, it's been the same at all three of them. If you include the exclusions on the government data and then total it in your spreadsheet yourself, then you get the same percentages that you get in ProAchieve, just to prove that is the reason for the difference.
Yes. Okay. So one can use that. Also for Strata, without doing anything, Strata is very likely to be exact to the government, because they would have automatically take that into account. Is that what you've noticed?
Yeah, that's right. So yes, in Strata, it automatically applies the exclusions, but then if you go into the filter on the apprenticeship summary, you can also change the filter to include the exclusions. And again, it drops the achievement rate percentage down when you do that. So yeah, that's right.
Okay, I think that's very important for colleges, because, like you said, they did a lot of presentation document to the governors, and there's that question MI has always been asked: why is ProAchieve showing this? Why is the QAR by the government showing this? And it's important to have understand the explanation of why the figures might be different. But like I said, the ultimate is the government one, but it's equally important for us to match our data set as much as possible, because that helps our data quality and ensures that we didn't making the right performance measures as government expects us to. And so thank you very much. I think that's really important for MI staff to understand.
Thank you.
So the next point we're going to look at is looking at the QAR methodology and data quality. I think you've mentioned a little bit earlier. So understanding the QAR methodology is very crucial for accurately interpreting the QAR data. So I want to highlight how the ESFA calculates achievement rates um, and the common data quality issues. For example, where you have duplicate records, incorrect learner statuses, um, enrollments missing in subsequent academic year, like the RO4, as we've mentioned, and that can have a negative impact on your QAR outcomes. And also the importance of using the ESFA's QAR business rules as a reference point. Robin, from your vast experience, and particularly with different colleges, what will you be your tips and actionable points for MI staff in respect to the methodology and data quality?
Well, I suppose one of the first points is to check your data throughout the year. So again, you don't get any surprises, good or bad, and hopefully your tool is measuring data in the same way, or at least if it's not, you understand the difference and how to reconcile the two as much as possible. But I think one of the main things is it's about the 6 week rule, which is obviously for long courses, so those that are over 24 weeks, ensuring that at
Mm,
the 6 week point, so well before the 6 week point, you've decided whether these students should remain on this course, or because that's obviously when the government people count it as a funded start um, from the 6 week point for the funded provision. So you need to make a decision then. If they've got a pattern of only attending once every 2 weeks, then there's something not right there. So colleges need to put interventions into place and sort of be tracking their learners. There's different ways to track learners, and the initial one is obviously attendance. So at the start of the year, you're looking at within those sort of maybe 4 or 5 weeks, who's not been attending, who's attended the least, and who's got the most sporadic attendance pattern, or which students are maybe attending the main qualification but missing English and maths out completely. So to sort of make
mm,
sure that because you need to, if you don't want the learners to ultimately withdraw from English and maths, and then you don't, so that person doesn't meet the funding rules, and they're counting the tolerance, which in the future she's going to be taken away, isn't it? So it might be.
mm,
So they need to ensure that that they kind of are sure this learner as much as they can. It should stay on this course and is likely to do well, because I mean it's not in the learners or the college's interest to leave them on that course if it's not right for them. So it's the case of the swap not drop as well, where you would try and find them something else to put them on, a
mm,
different course, perhaps transfer them to something different. But you've got to make that decision at the sort of before the 6 week point. Do we have this person risking hitting the retention figures if they stay for 7 weeks and then they leave, or you transfer them to something that they would do better at, and then they'll hopefully stay. Or do you think that with the right support they're going to carry on and achieve this qualification that they're on? So that's an important point to kind of try and get it right and to estimate. I mean, you won't get it right in all instances, and obviously, people have personal circumstances that may affect their ability to continue on the course. But then of course it's tracking the retention as time goes on, and continuing to track the attendance, and then making sure that the sort of the staff are checking the learners and evaluating their performance on an ongoing basis. Um, so rather than it being at the end, because by then it's too late to do anything about it. And then at
mm,
the end, and then as the year goes on, you're starting to look at the retention, the achievement, and then at the end of the year, then it's about the twos and the eights, which is the people who they've passed the end date, but you don't know yet if they've achieved or failed. And
mm,
I mean, unlike if the staff aren't marking their registers, where that goes down as neutral, so it doesn't have an impact in the sense of the stats. Obviously, it does have an impact, but that's a different story. But whereas with the achievement rates, if you don't put that person is already counting as a completer, but until you put down
mm,
until you bank the achievement, they aren't counting as achieved as a success.
mm,
So until you bank that achievement, they're pulling down your achievement rates, assuming that they did achieve, but they're almost counting as not achieved. So not counting as a fail, but not counting as an achievement. But in your
mm,
stats, you're looking at your completed and you're looking at achieved. So in that sense, they kind of are complete. They're sort of counting as a fail until achieved, because you're dividing one by the other.
mm.
And so ideally, you want those in by
Yes.
L14, which is obviously in October.
Mm,
But so if your courses are non-apprenticeships, they end before the end of July, then hopefully that's long enough to either get the claims from the awarding bodies, or if they're internally marked by the staff, ensuring that the teaching staff before they go on their holidays to complete all their admin work, which is to put the achievements through exams, so that by the R14 you would hopefully have a good idea of the final position for the college. And it would just be the apprenticeships where they've gone into their EPA, the endpoint assessment, where they may be ended in July, and then you've maybe got a 3 month period where you're waiting for the EPA to complete, so you can bank the
mm,
achievement. And of course, you've only got till R04 in December, so you don't really want your apprenticeships to be achieving on the 31st of July, because then you run the risk, especially if it's a health course where they tend to have a 6 month EPA period. You might not get it in
mm,
time, and then if you fail to get the achievements in time, then on your official qualification achievement rates for the college that are published by the government for anybody to see at the sort of summary level, those achievements wouldn't be banked, and even if you get them later, then you can only put them in internally, but your published externally visible data would kind of almost show those as fails because they aren't achievements. So in effect, they are
mm.
fails. So I think so sort of good data management comes into this, and as well the sort of tracking the data as the year goes along, and so you can kind of make interventions as and when needed before it's too late. By which point you can't change the trajectory.
Yeah, I think like it also linked to the fourth point, which is about in-year data and proactive corrections. That proactive corrections. We've got a lot of data set to use. You've got the PDSAT, you've got the FMR, all those, and a lot of other systems internally, and to help in-year checks of the data, like you mentioned, and that timely updating when people have withdrawn, and transfers where you have people that have transferred but actually they've not transferred to anything, and all those little implications are very important. And also, like a lot of colleges will have like an end of year closing process to make sure everybody that is still active in each course are genuinely we are waiting results for them. So there's no one down before the summer holidays as expecting result when there's no result expected. Because then you have situation in August, September, you chasing result because then you get to the busy time of August and new enrollment, staff getting the new academic year started. Before you know it, it's nearly time for R14, and then you realize that, oh no, this learner didn't, he left in June or May, and you're thinking, what? um so it's quite
Mm.
important those checks are done before the summer holidays to make sure whoever is down as 2 and 8 and completed a with result, I genuinely we're expecting result by the following August or September latest.
Yeah, I just
I'm
noticed something
quite
else
used to.
actually. Um,
Yes.
Sorry, just on the kind of about timeliness of data. one of the other issues that I see sometimes is that the obviously you need the 6 week point to be accurate, as accurate as possible, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously the executive teams are saying what are our current 16 to 19 numbers, because obviously you're getting, say approximately £5,000 a learner. Then
Yes.
if you lose a few learners, that's quite a lot of money. So they need to know
Mm.
what's the actual number. And what can happen often is, maybe the curriculum staff don't tell the EMIS department that actually this student was
Yes.
withdrawn a few weeks ago and they haven't been attending for a few weeks.
Yes.
They've long gone. But as far as the EMIS
Mm.
and the data is concerned, this student is still continuing, and we're kind of expecting that learner to be kind of counting in the numbers and getting the funding for them. But actually, they say, oh no, that person withdrew, and it's before the 6 week point. So what happens is the
Mm.
college can be estimating that we're going to hit this much money, and then one of the departments sends through a long list in a spreadsheet of these learners all need to come off, and then all of a sudden that number they had drops massively, and then the principal might be going, well,
Yes.
why is this? Just yesterday we had this many learners, and then today I've
Learners.
got my coffee, put the dashboard up, and then we've dropped by 50. What's happened to those 50? I say, well, I
Yes.
mean, someone's known about them for a bit, and they've just not told the message hasn't got to the right people to update the data to reflect reality.
Mm. And again, like I said, for 62 funding, the arrow for learner numbers is very, very important to be accurate, because that determines the learner numbers for the following year funding. So that means if someone had withdrawn before the 6 week cutoff and you hadn't withdrawn them by the arrow 4, then that's not right. You over counting your number of learners, and then suddenly when the government do their check in year, they realize that, hold on a minute, your R4 said 4,000 learners, but then your R6 or your R14 says 3,900 learners. So there are 100 learners that actually had withdrawn before the 6 weeks, that you should have made their withdrawn effective as at R4, but it didn't. So they had used that extra numbers for your funding. Obviously, the ESFA, well, now DFE, they're going to send you a letter asking you to explain why you suddenly lost 100 learners from R4 to your R14. And that's definitely not good. That's immediate
What
audit.
happened?
And yeah,
Because actually,
yeah.
it's
So
actually
I think,
£500,000 that, so that's quite a loss as well. Because £5,000 times 100, that's £500,000 you would be expecting, and
yeah.
then suddenly realise that, oh no, we haven't got that.
Yeah, and obviously the government have said they're going to increase the funding for the funding national rate for 16 to 19 funding, and so we're expecting that to go higher for next year, as they've already announced the increase. So there's a big implication of this data quality, this in-year timely withdrawal, apart from your QAR, is also for your funding, particularly for the R4, and making sure learners are withdrawn timely for your R4. I think they do check the R6 as well, the February return, in case you have new learners starting in January. So then, yeah, that could increase your numbers as well, and the opportunity. But yes, so that's very important to utilize in-year reports and timely withdrawals. Importance of resolving data issues before the final ILR at close in October. Particularly for 2024-25, it's October 2025. So yeah, addressing these queries and resolving issues is very important to look at those data queries internally. And if there's anything really strange with the QAR itself, which has happened, obviously get in touch with the respective ESFA to look into it as soon as possible before it is the final one is published in March, just a couple of months' time. That's it for today's episode of the College MIS Matters podcast. We've covered some big topics, from the ESFA's transition to the Department for Education, to AI's expanding role in government, and Keir Starmer's ambitious plans for the UK's AI future. Finally, we unpacked the Provisional QAR for 23-24 based on the R14, shedding light on the data and step colleges can take to ensure accuracy and alignment. Thank you very much for joining in. We look forward to you joining us again next week. Again, please make sure you follow us in any of your podcast platforms, and so you can get a notification immediately when we publish the latest episode. So thanks for listening. I really do hope you've really found it beneficial and the different talking points of today. Thank you once again for joining us, and thank you, Robin, once again for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.